filter is being used at the Altuve pool, which has been discovered that was the best decision, that we're going to need to replace that. It occurs to me that if we're going to spend $735,000 to fix that pool on the north side, that I would like to know what it would cost to build a new pool over there. We're not talking a bathhouse, we're talking what the cost, I believe, of the Thompson Park pool was $1 million. So when you subtract the $735 for simply patching and repairing, we don't know. Mr. Delaney, do you have any insight into what might need to be done behind the Marla or the Marsite and also in the cement walls that might add to that estimate that you were not able to see when you did your preliminary estimate on it?
No, I can't speak on that. Again, it's exploratory. Once we get into it, I couldn't adequately give you a number until we opened it up. The number that I presented was, as we spoke in our site visit, a number based on what I can visibly see. Most likely the cost will escalate, just based on my experience.
It very well could, depending what you find once you've gotten into it further.
Correct.
So I think what I'm suggesting is to make an evaluation as to what the best course of action would be. It would be my belief that we would look at both proposals to see what we need to do, what would be in the best interest of the city's taxpayer. To invest, $735,000 at the current estimate in repairing a pool that's already had some wear and tear in many years of use, as opposed to replacing it. We do have an interest in seeing the zero grade entrance so that it becomes ADA compliance. It's interesting, I think, from what I listened back to, there's been a lot of pushback on this from one side against the other. And what occurred to me was that in 2017, Mr. former Councilman Brian Henry Wilkinson had said at a forum regarding the Thompson Park pool, and the same arguments were being used at that time about fixing that. Brian said that he was in favor of fixing the Thompson Park pool. He says, the people are telling us to spend their money to fix their pool. So let's fix it in a way that maybe it can be retrofitted. It could be used year-round. Now, we heard some comments about, well, how much is that going to cost? Well, I think when you look at the years of this lack of maintenance on the city's assets, and it's been my observation over the time that I've been here to see that the arena, at one time I think there was an estimate of about $400,000 to fix the roof. That wasn't done. I think you had suggested that was done, Mayor. That was your recommendation. Instead, they let it go. We ended up replacing it. I believe it started at like $8 million and escalated to about $11 million. And so, we saw the Thompson Park pool go into disrepair over the years without the maintenance being put into it. We've seen the Flynn pool in the same situation in that. We spend the money on these assets, and they're taxpayers' assets. And we saw a decision be made the last time regarding the Altuve pool's demolition. That was in August 10th, I believe, of 2020. The engineering study by Mr. Delaney was done in December of 2020. That was 4 months after a decision was made about demolishing a $3 million, approximately, dollar taxpayer asset. On the opinion of what a former Parks and Recreation director had said, never she said it, but that's what she's had attributed to her. It's my belief that we should look at things more thoroughly before we make decisions, and also that we should do what's in the best interest of the community as a whole. Now, the North Side's pool certainly needs to have something done with it, and I respect the fact that other ideas have been brought up and suggested, and I agree, I like those ideas. I think there should be more opportunity in the city of Watertown for recreation for people to do. And so it's not just about pools. Pools is just one aspect of what we're trying to do for the community as a whole, is my belief. And it isn't just a campaign promise, it's an observation that I've made over the years about what's been done and what's been suggested and what we have been told we can afford And I just don't disagree, I don't agree with that. I think we can do more for the people. And that particular side of the city has certainly been neglected in my observation. So it's my belief we should look at both what it's gonna cost to repair it and do it, and also what it's gonna cost to replace the pool, not the bathhouse. And I understand that there would be money invested in the bathhouse from what I looked at and saw when I was over there. And also, from what I saw on your estimate, Mr. Delaney. But I think that I'd like to see those numbers before I come to a final conclusion. And so I'm in support of allocating money so that we can do that engineering study to find out what's the best course of action. Thank you.
So I just want to add, that for those who, I've seen a lot of stuff on social media, and I find that a lot of the people that say they don't live on the north side, or they have a pool, or they have access to other means. I've talked with many people on the north side, and that can't be further from the truth as to what they want. And you mentioned, Councilman, quite a few things that I was gonna say, but my concern is, does the city have a preventative maintenance program for structures? I know from what I've seen, it seems like it's easier to kick the can down the road and save the money and use it for something else in the budget. But I think that, we are looking at wanting to add money to here at City Hall for improvements, but I've seen it elsewhere. And, I was the only one who voted against closing the Ulterior Pool. And imagine if that was demolished, and then we have the issue with the swimming pool, we would be still talking about, we would have to fix the swimming pool to have that up and running. So not only would we have destroyed a perfectly good pool, squandered probably, $1 million, because that's about what it cost. We didn't have, at that meeting, we had no engineering data, nothing from staff to indicate the conditions to make a logical decision. And I have issues with that. Some people were willing to waste that. I was not one of them. And when we have something that is salvageable, possibly, we're here to listen to the people. We work for them. And I think that's, we need to move on. It's going to happen. I think we need to look at the best options as to what we can do with it. Oh, and also, do we have a time frame as to how all of this will work, or can you come up with a time frame, maybe like what would be, the first step is going to be design and get a design company and...
Well, the first step is we've got to get a proposal from a design firm, get a contract before the city council. And the first step I would suggest is to do a preliminary evaluation, going back to what Councilmember Olney is speaking about, is first do a very preliminary assessment as to what's the minimum that needs to be done to get this pool up and running. And then what I called in my memo is a more extensive renovation, but I'm hearing now is maybe a complete rebuild, so maybe those are the two different things. Do that, then the council will have to make a decision as to which direction you want to go in with that, and then we hire the firm to do the final design for it.
Okay. And this doesn't pertain to you, but I did contact the Times regarding their online survey because really the record is what was in the paper on Saturday, which was 66.7% were in favor of fixing the two pools. And they can't distinguish whether it's a resident or a non-resident or anything like that. So anybody, anywhere can vote on that. And they said that it's not used for any scientific reasons, that it's not anything that they use for any of their editorials. Basically, it's a barometer of what people are thinking, and that they put those out there, I think, just to see, how people respond. They sometimes have some fun surveys on there. But they said they don't use those other than they print them, and, they like to see what people are thinking, so, thank you.
What were they thinking? What were the results?
In the paper, it was 66.7% in favor of fixing both pools. So,
Where's the survey?
it's in the paper.
No.
That's the
Where do you
printed
go?
record.
Huh?
That's
No, where do you
the-
go?
that's
That's
the
what I'm
printed
wondering.
record. Yeah, it's online.
That's where you
Yeah, I could have posted it on my Facebook page with 4,000 followers and probably got it to go up about 80% to in favor of doing it. I mean, if you want to skew a poll, there's certain ways of doing it. You know, but I think the most important thing that you can look at is we had a referendum on this last election, all right? And quite frankly, it's not for that reason, all right? It was the right thing to do, in my opinion, for the north side. It sends a message to all parts of the city. We should treat all areas of the city with respect they deserve. They're all taxpayers. And I think that the candidates that ran on having two polls lost. The candidates that ran on having all three polls won the election. And that, on that issue, I think that, what further polling do we need from the Times or anyone else to decide? Now, I said during the campaign that on anything that we went forward with, that we were gonna suggest or talk about doing, we would have public hearings. And I fully plan to do exactly that. All right, on this particular issue, I think that it was decided in the election because it was one of the main things that we talked about. All through that, it was very clear. And the folks that were in favor of building and making sure all three pools were open, that serve all three different communities. They expressed their opinion on that day. And, for someone to say that you can put your kid on a bus over in the north side and send them up to the park, if you're a 9-year-old kid, I'm a parent. I'm certainly not going to send my child up on a city bus to the park, when I can have a neighborhood pool right down on Court Street. So I think, when you talk about all the things we looked at, the attendance records, the fact is that there's no sign that indicates there's any pool behind the North Elementary School. There's really no sign down on East Street that indicates there's a public pool on behind the fairgrounds, back in there behind the arena. So, if we have marketing properly, and then we had numbers that were dismal or low, I would say, okay, all right, that's probably more fair. But to take something like that, pool attendance, out of context, without marketing being involved, it's just wrong. It's not accurate, and it's not the way you do things. I think personally, you have to make an effort to get people to go there. And there's a few things I could think of to add to our pool that would certainly increase the attendance. So that's what I look for.
Mr. Mixler? I'm sorry. This resolution does not include the way I'm reading it is a design and renovation at that cost. And what I'm hearing is there's a request for another engineering survey at the pool. I guess there's questions which I think Mr. Delaney, when he did his complete review, as was seen in the filters and as was in the 2011 engineering report, that the filter at the Altieri pool in the 2011 engineering report only had a few years left. It was the original, as you said, needed to replace, and I think that's what we found out. So would there need to be more money if that's the case, that estimate plus an engineering review?
No, I don't think so. And this is just a preliminary review anyway. We might, if the council decides to rebuild the entire thing, it's gonna be more than this, and we'll have to readopt the budget then. I see that initial evaluation is just the first step in design, so it's covered under this.
Thank you. Mr. Mix, you mentioned on the first page of Resolution 5 that you're proposing that it be funded with American Rescue Plan lost revenue funds. Would fit under that requirement?
Yeah, because, we can expend the ARPA funds for any general governmental services up to the extent that we had lost revenue, and this is providing pools is a general governmental, expense.
I'll just say that I think this is a missed opportunity to do something a little bit bigger, think outside the box, and really invest in something that will provide a bigger benefit to taxpayers and residents over a longer period of time. I'm not convinced that residents prefer another pool over other options. I think that people really haven't even had an opportunity to think about other options because they really haven't been presented. It's just been pools 24/7, which kind of boggles my mind sometimes because we live in northern New York and there are literally cities in central Florida, Texas, you name it, warm climates that have a bigger population than us and fewer pools. So I think, the focus on pools has been kind of misguided. I think, we have, again, an opportunity here to do something different and invest this money in a way that will provide a bigger bang for our buck to residents. And, I know I'm outnumbered on this, but that's my opinion.
Well, I thought after last week's discussion, I thought it sounded like we had agreed to look into your option to look at some pricing in addition to this. So I would say we're not looking at either or, but I think that we should be looking at pricing for something like that. So I'm in favor of that in addition to this. So, I think we need to look at what we can really offer people. So.
I agree. I think that, the previous council, there was a majority, that, could have done anything that they decided they wanted to do on the north side, it occurs to me. Had they decided to do that, and, I welcome the suggestion that the splash pad ice rink / could be built as well on the north side. There are, Mr. Mills, what do we have in additional revenue now from the sales tax revenue and also the hydro at this point with your estimate to the completion of the year as compared to last year? Where are we at on an additional
In
amount?
council's agenda is the updated sales tax and hydro numbers.
Oh, okay, that's later, so I was getting ahead of myself.
Year-to-date budget for sales tax, we are up 1.6 million. Hydro, we're up budgetarily 1.8 million.
It's about 3 million or so already. It has only been what, how many months?
Six.
So, we've still got 6 more months to go.
We do.
That was money that we weren't expecting to get.
For the first 6 months, I can't speak to the next 6
Oh, I
months.
understand, okay. So, I believe there comes a point where you start to look at things like that and say, okay, now I understand there's been a concern about the hydro revenue fall off. We haven't really talked to the hydro committee and other suggestions that might be possible, alternative possibilities for that. But we have an opportunity to do some things for the city taxpayers. It's their money. And we would have the balance that we have in the fund right now to certainly send a message that we're listening to them and to do something for them because it is their money. And I don't want to give the wrong impression to the people listening. Certainly, we're going to be having a lot more road projects this year, Mr. Mix, that we're working on.
We've got enough road projects and especially water projects that we typically do over a 10-year period. So we've got a lot of them lined up and the difficulty is going to be getting them done.
Getting them done because of, we'll talk more about it. Yeah, so, we're not losing focus of what's most important. I mean, the infrastructure of the city is certainly the most important. We talked about that a lot during the campaign and also now here. This council's focus will be on the important things. But, occasionally it occurs to me as a parent, my kids would come to me and ask me for, something fun. And can we go to water safari? And, at times you say, yeah, let's do that. And I think this is one of those times where we can invest in our city taxpayers' communities, something visual that would be fun for them to do. And I think that's part of our responsibility to be balanced, in that approach, as long as we can afford it and do it reasonably. without being so overly fearful about the future, that we can't see other opportunities to address that hydro issue other than one that's been being proposed right along. But that's just my thought.
All right, any other council member have any other discussion on this? Mr. Chance, before I... All right, so when we look at the number of pools, again, we have to look at standards and needs of the community. We have to also look at future costs and impact to our community. If you look at what the National Park and Recreation Association recommends, it's one pool per 20,000 people. If you look at other communities the size of Watertown or larger, Peekskill, for example, 24,000, one pool. Auburn, again, I used it before because it's often used as a comparison city of 26,500 people, one pool. Ithaca, 30,000 people, two pools. Troy, New York, 50,000 people, one pool. These have a cost, an impact on the taxpayers in the community. They're utilized at best 10 to 12 weeks a year. We now are going to open one pool this year on weekends for additional 4 weeks, so we'll get 12 or 13 weeks of use. Just that increase in opening the pool for those 4 weeks on weekends only is about $14,000 plus, and that's if we can staff it. If you look over the projections, which Mr. Mills sent to everybody on the council, as we go out over the next decade, we're going to be paying over $500,000 for 3 pools for usage for 13 weeks a year. We have a declining population in the city of Watertown. 2022 is not the same as it was in the 1970s, where people have multiple cars in their family, transportation is much better. We have seen maps of where the number of people with pools in their backyards. When I was a kid, people rode their bikes, went to these pools. Times have changed, and I've often been told, and people have said to me, you know, it'd be great to have these kids use the pools if we can get them off their iPhone, get them outside to do some activity. There is going to be a cost to the taxpayer to have 3 pools. So again, the question will be, how much you're going to raise taxes. Your suggestion to use American Recovery Loss dollars, this is not a bottomless pit of money. And so when that money is gone, you're going to have to cut something, or you're going to have to substantially raise taxes, even to just do maintenance. And I've been on the council in the past, and those have been hard decisions to make. Are you going to raise? I've been here when, you know, I didn't support it, but there's been tax rate increases of 10%. When I first got on the council, they were borrowing police cars and financing police cars. So that's why things were, quote, kicked down the road. Previous councils have been very cognizant of recreational activities and opportunities. The past council was not flippant in their vote on demolishing the pool. 3 people ran on that agenda and won. And if there was a rush to demolish pools, that would have happened.